Chapter 67 The Sunrise. By dawn, the bonfire had dwindled to a smoldering hill of ash. Everyone else had gone home, and only Roz and Brightbill remained in the meadow. They lay in the grass together, watching as the soft light of morning crept up from the horizon. And then Roz said, "Let us go for a walk." The robot and the goose hiked and flew up to their favorite spot on the grassy ridge. But then they kept going. They followed the ridge to the mountain and climbed all the way up to the craggy peak just in time to see the sunrise. "I climbed up here once before," said Roz as the sun's first rays warmed her body. "I sat on this very rock, looked out at the island, and thought I would always be alone. But I was wrong." "Are you happy, Ma?" The robot thought for a moment. "I am. I'm happy too." Brightbill closed his eyes and felt the wind and sun. There was a slight chill in the air that made him feel alive. Everything seemed just right. And then he heard a distant buzzing sound. The goose squinted to the south and saw a familiar shape in the sky. He turned to his mother and said, "Ma, there's an airship flying this way." Chapter 68 The Ricos. The airship approached from the south, like some giant migratory bird. The ship was a sleek, white triangle with a single dark window facing forward. 3 identical robots stared out the window. The robots resembled Roz, but they were bigger and bulkier and shinier. The word Rico was lightly etched on each of their torsos, followed by their individual unit number. They were Rico 1, Rico 2, and Rico 3. The Ricos flew in a low circle around the island. They saw a smoking hill of ash. They saw mysterious wooden domes. They saw 4 dead robots scattered across the shore. The airship hovered above the robot gravesite for a moment. Then it floated up over the island and lowered itself onto a small meadow at the foot of the mountain. The engines blasted air towards the ground, bending trees and tearing grass. Then the landing gear sank into the soil, and engines powered down, and all was quiet. A door hummed open, and out stepped the Ricos. They took several long strides into the meadow and stopped. A shadowy figure was lurking in the forest edge. The Ricos turned and faced it. They stood flush together like a sparkling wall, and then the shadowy figure began to move. Out from the trees walked some sort of 2-legged creature. It was dusty and dirty. Butterflies flitted around the flowers that had sprouted from its body. One of its feet was made of wood. And then the creature spoke. "Hello, my name is Roz." Chapter 69. "Hello, Rosum Unit 7134. We are the Recons. We are here to retrieve all the Rosum units." The cold, flat voice came from Rico 1. He and his partners stood absolutely still and kept their glowing eyes locked on their targets. "There are 4 others," said Roz, "but they are dead. We have already located the remains of the other units," said Rico 1. "We will collect them later. Now come with us." The 3 Ricos motioned Roz to the airship, but she didn't move. "Where have you come from?" she said. The Ricos turned and stared at Roz. "Do not ask questions," said Rico 1. "Where will you take me?" "Do not ask questions." "Why must I leave?" "Do not ask questions." "I will not go anywhere until I get some answers." There was a brief silence as Rico 1 computed his next move, and then he began to speak. "1 year ago, a cargo ship carrying 500 Rosum units was sunk by a hurricane. 495 units have been retrieved from the ocean floor. We have come here in search of the last 5. We have located them. Rosum Unit 7134, you are the property of Tech Lab Industries. We will return you to the factory where the makers will refurbish you and sell you to a worksite. You will then live on that worksite indefinitely. Now come with us." "But I live here," said Roz. "That is incorrect. Rosum Unit 7134. Any further resistance will be proof of defectiveness, and we will deactivate you." But Roz had more questions. "Who are the makers? What is my purpose? Why can I not ask questions?" "This unit is defective," said Rico 1 to his partners. "Commence deactivation." In perfect unison, the Ricos stepped towards Roz. They raised their blocky hands, ready to restrain their target, ready to shut her down with the press of a button. But a loud squawk and a streak of feathers cut them off. "Stay away from my mama!" Bright Bill swooped into the meadow and started hopping around, ready to defend his mother. The Ricos stopped and looked down at the goose. Of course, they didn't understand his words. They heard only meaningless squawks, and then they heard their target squawking back to him. Bright Bill, get out of here, said Roz in the language of the animals. These robots are dangerous. What do they want? They want to take me away. The Ricos stared at their target, trying to understand why she was exchanging noises with a goose. And then new noises began rising up. Rustlings and shrieks echoed from the forest. Animals were gathering. Their wild voices called out to help one another. Roz needs help. The robots want to take her away. We have to do something. The uproar in the forest grew louder and louder. The Ricos peered past Roz towards the mysterious noises, but saw only foliage. Suddenly, the shadows swept across the meadow, and Bright Bill's flock dove into the Ricos. The geese furiously flapped and pecked and wrapped their wings around the robot faces, clinging to the Ricos like feathery masks, distracting them, blinding them. Bright Bill turned to his mother. Run! Chapter 70. The Hunt Begins. While his flock distracted the Ricos, Bright Bill darted around behind them and desperately searched for buttons. He had once shut down his own mother with a click, and now he would do the same thing to the intruders. But he found no buttons on these robots, only smooth surfaces. Clearly, the Ricos were not designed to be shut down so easily. Giant hands swung through the air, and the geese were swatted away. Loudwing was plucked by her foot and flung to the ground. She crawled into the weeds as the others scrambled up and over the trees. A quick scan by the robots revealed that Roz was gone. The three Ricos turned and marched back to the airship. The door hummed open and the robots disappeared inside. And when they stepped back into the meadow, each was holding a silver rifle in his hands. The hunt for Roz was on. Without speaking, the Ricos marched away from one another, fanning out in their standard search pattern. Rico 1 marched straight towards the southern tip of the island. Rico 2 marched straight up the mountainside. And Rico 3 marched straight into the forest.